Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about my 2020 Senate election predictions. So I'll be making my official predictions for the United States Senate elections in 2020 today. And basically I do all of my prediction videos every 2 weeks. So yesterday I covered the 2020 presidential election, and tomorrow I'll do my House race predictions, and then the day after that, my governor election races. And so basically today I'm just going to be talking about the Senate. The Republicans do currently have control of the United States Senate. They currently control 53 seats to the Republicans with 47. And the Republicans do actually have more seats up for re-election this time around. They have 23 seats up for re-election, and the Democrats only have 12 seats to defend, which is why the Democrats start off with 35 for the Democrats and then 30 for the Republicans. So I'm just going to be filling in this map based on the margins I expect either candidate from either party to see. The darkest color, but that is basically a solid margin, which is over 15% for either candidate, and then a likely margin between 7 and 15%, still pretty good, but a little bit closer. And then the lean margin, these elections are pretty close. However, one of the candidates is definitely the clear winner, so that is a lean margin between 2 and 7%, and then less than 2%, that is a tilt margin, which is basically one candidate wins the election very narrowly in their state. And so first I'm going to start off by filling in the safe Democratic states. These are the states of Oregon, New Mexico, Minnesota, Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Illinois. So these states, they are not going to be close at all. The Democrats are definitely going to sweep all of these states with very strong margins. They are all traditionally Democratic states, and they will go to the Democratic Party no matter what. I really do not see any Republicans winning any of these seats. Some states don't even have Republican challengers in each of these states. And then for the Republican states like Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, and West Virginia. These are all the states that I classify as being safe seats for the Republicans. The state of Alabama, I'm not going to be giving to the Republicans as a safe seat. I will talk about that in a couple of moments. And then the state of Kansas, I will also cover in a couple of minutes. So currently, with all these safe seats accounted for, the Democrats control 44 seats, and the Republicans control 30. So really, there are only 3 Democratic seats that are not either safe or that they already have control of for the Democrats in 2020. These are the seats in the states of Alabama, Michigan, and New Hampshire. And so these 3 seats, I think, are definitely the most vulnerable Democratic seats. However, the seat in Michigan, I think it's going to be a likely margin. I think that Gary Peters is definitely going to defeat John James, but this may be a little bit closer than these other seats that I talked about earlier. And then next, another likely seat for the Democrats is the seat in the state of New Hampshire. I think New Hampshire, will be around a 12-13% margin for Jeanne Shaheen. She is the incumbent. She has not had a Republican challenger yet. They did not have their primary yet for the Republican nomination for the Senate race in New Hampshire. New Hampshire, typically a pretty close Senate race. Jeanne Shaheen has not won her elections with too large of a margin. However, in 2020, she is expected to, just because there are no really strong Republican challengers to challenge her in the state of New Hampshire. So I think New Hampshire will definitely be a likely state for her in 2020. I think her re-election chances are very high at the moment. And then the last Democratic held seat that I do not think they're going to win, this is of course the state of Alabama, currently held by Doug Jones. He became a senator in 2018, and he is pulling behind Tommy Tuberville by over 7% at the moment, which is not good for the incumbent. I don't think he's going to win his state. Alabama is a very Republican state. However, the governor does get to appoint replacement senators, which is why Doug Jones became a senator, because the governor of Alabama was in the Democratic Party. But it currently looks like Tommy Tuberville is going to win his seat with a likely margin, so I'm going to give the state of Alabama to him. I'll take that back. I think it's going to be a lean margin, actually, just because I think that 7%, I think the incumbent is more advantaged just because they are the incumbent. So I think that around a 5-6% margin is more likely. So just a little bit less than 7 in the state of Alabama for Tommy Tuberville. And that is basically all of Democratic seats covered. They currently have 46, so based on all of their seats, they have been able to defend 11 of them, and they have lost 1 seat, the seat in Alabama, currently held by Doug Jones. And then next, I just want to take a look at all of the likely Republican states. So there are really no more likely Democratic states, but for the likely Republican column, there are quite a few states that you would typically think are going to be safe for the Republicans. However, I do not think they are this time around. In the state of Alaska, Dan Sullivan leads Al Gross by 12%. Still a very good margin, but not too great considering how conservative Alaska tends to be. But Al Gross, he's not a Democrat, he is an independent. So 12% in the state of Alaska for Dan Sullivan at the moment based on polling data, but I do think he's definitely going to continue to carry his seat. And next is the seat in the state of Kentucky. This is currently held by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. He, of course, is the majority leader for the Republicans, and if he were to lose, he would become the minority leader if he continues to lead the Republicans in the Senate. This is just because he is, I think, the most senior senator in the United States Senate for the Republican Party. And basically, in the state of Kentucky, he faces off against Democrat Amy McGrath, and he does have a 14% lead over her, but that I do not think he's going to win with a solid margin, just because he's not popular in his home state. He's very unpopular in the state of Kentucky. He is the second most unpopular senator in the entire country, but he has always been unpopular, and he's always been able to win his elections, which is why this is nothing new for him. He's always been unpopular, but I think he will definitely be able to retain his seat just by a slightly lesser margin. And next, the state of Texas, John Cornyn, he is currently defending his seat against MJ Heger. He's up 9 points in the polls. I think he will continue to carry Texas. I think he will definitely outperform Donald Trump. There's no way he underperforms President Trump right now. President Trump is basically in a tie with Biden in the state of Texas. He leads by 9%. He's definitely going to carry this state. It has been a Republican stronghold for decades, but it does seem to be moving more and more to the left. But I think that this is not going to be like a Ted Cruz, Beto O'Rourke situation we saw in 2018 when Beto O'Rourke came within 2% of carrying the state of Texas. I think definitely John Cornyn is going to have a much better result compared to Ted Cruz. And then after this, I want to take a look at some other states that I think are going to be pretty close. I think these are basically the main elections that are going to decide the 2020 Senate. However, the state of Kansas, I think Kansas is a state to talk about. Currently, the incumbent has decided that he is not going to seek another term, which is why this is an open seat. There has been no candidates chosen, I believe. However, in the state of Kansas, I think it's going to go to the Republicans, just not by a safe margin, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a likely margin for whoever winds up being the Republican nominee for the Senate in the state of Kansas. And then after the state of Kansas, I want to take a look at some of the lean Democratic states. They currently have 45 seats to the Republicans. 46 seats to the Republicans with 45. So the Democrats need 4 more seats if they want to have 50%, and they would control the majority if Joe Biden wins the election. And Kamala Harris would become the vice president, meaning she would break all ties, and she'd of course break the ties for the Democrats. So they really only need 4 seats if Joe Biden wins, 5 seats if Joe Biden loses. However, I think that Joe Biden is going to win the election right now, so I think that 4 seats is going to be enough. So the first lean Democratic state is the state of Colorado, currently held by Cory Gardner, I believe. Yes, Cory Gardner. He was elected in 2014, and he's currently down 10 points against John Hickenlooper in the state of Colorado. John Hickenlooper is, of course, a very popular governor from the state of Colorado. He unsuccessfully ran for president. However, he is a much more well-known name in the state of Colorado, and I think that he's definitely going to flip this seat. So the first flip of the night for the Democrats, putting them up at 47. And the next is the state of North Carolina. I think that North Carolina, Cal Cunningham leads Tom Tillis by over 9% at the moment. He had this giant leap in the polls just a couple of weeks ago against the incumbent. Tom Tillis, of course, elected in 2014. I think Cal Cunningham is definitely going to win his Senate race in the state of North Carolina with a likely margin. And then, so looking at these states, I think that what we can notice is that a lot of the senators that were elected in 2014 are very vulnerable right now. All of the senators that were elected in 2014 are up for re-election this year. And 2014, of course, was a wave year. The Republicans took control of both the House and the Senate. Just because President Obama was not too popular. He was in one of his low points of his presidency in 2014. And so basically he lost control of both houses of Congress after winning them all back in 2008. However, since he lost both houses of Congress, he a lot of the states that voted for a Republican, they won by a pretty narrow margin. So the senators in states like Colorado, North Carolina, these are all pretty close states in Senate election races. But because it was a Republican wave year, it went to the Republicans just because more Republicans came out in support of their party than the Democrats. But the Democrats, 2020 is looking like it's shaping up to become a Democratic wave year. So I think that a lot of the close races from 2014 are going to go to the Democrats this time around. And not the Republicans. And with that, the next state that I think has a lean margin for lean, not likely. I put both Colorado and North Carolina as likely for the Democrats, but lean, this is a lighter blue. And then in the state of Arizona, I think that Mark Kelly is almost definitely going to win his race. He's up 7% over Martha McSally. Martha McSally became the senator in 2019 after the passing of John McCain. John McCain, of course, the 2008 Republican nominee for president, and has served in the Senate for many decades. And when he passed, Martha McSally was appointed to be the new senator from the state of Arizona. But Mark Kelly leads by 7 points over her, and Mark Kelly, of course, a failed candidate in the 2018 Senate races. So I think that she is definitely not a good candidate to run for the Republicans, but they are going to continue to run her for the Senate race in the state of Arizona. So I think that this is going to be an easy victory for Mark Kelly. And we have only 6 more races, I believe: Montana, Iowa, the 2 from Georgia, South Carolina, and Maine. And so basically, I'm just going to take a look at the tilt Democratic states first. I think these races are going to be very close. I think a tilt margin will be able to categorize all of these states. And so first, looking at the state of Iowa, currently held by Joni Ernst in 2015, I'm pretty on the fence about this state. I could honestly see it going to either candidate. However, I think that Teresa Greenfield, Joni Ernst's Democratic challenger, she's up in the polls by a very slim margin, similar to the Trump-Biden margins in the state of Iowa. But I think that Greenfield is going to pull off a win by a very slight margin on election night, just because she has been polling pretty well against an incumbent in a technically Republican state. The state went to Donald Trump by over 9% in 2016, so it's pretty surprising to see that Teresa Greenfield is doing so well here. And then next is the state of Montana. I think that in the state of Montana, so the Democrats are not at 50 seats, so if Joe Biden wins the election, they will have control. And looking at the state of Montana, currently held by Steve Daines. He also won his election in 2014, similarly to Joni Ernst in the state of Iowa. However, Steve Daines is not too popular in his state. Steve Bullock is also I think Steve Bullock is like Cory Gardner. He is a popular governor from his state. He also ran an unsuccessful presidential campaign in 2020. However, he is much better liked in his home state of Montana. So I think that Montana will be a tilt state for Steve Bullock. I think he will defeat incumbent Steve Daines in the state of Montana. So basically, this gives the Democrats control of the United States Senate, controlling 51 seats, to the Republicans with 45. And next, I want to do some tilt Republican states. I'm going to talk about Maine last, just because I think that is the most interesting race in the 2020 Senate elections. First off, looking at the state of South Carolina, I think that South Carolina is not actually going to be a lean state. I think it's going to be not a tilt state. I think it's going to be a lean state for the Republicans here. I'm sorry if I said tilt earlier, but I think that in the state of South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, he may have been serving in the Senate for the state of South Carolina since 2003, but he is not too popular right now in the state. South Carolina is moving more and more to the left as we speak, and Jamie Harrison is definitely outraising Lindsey Graham by quite a large margin. However, he is still pulling behind him, but I think that Lindsey Graham will still be able to pull off one of his nearest victories in the South Carolina Senate race. And then I want to talk about the 2 races in Georgia. Basically, there is the normal Georgia Senate race and then the Georgia special election, which is for Kelly Loeffler, who became the senator from Georgia after another resignation, I believe, by the senator in the state of Georgia. So the Republican governor appointed Kelly Loeffler to become the senator from the state of Georgia, filling in the vacancy. So basically, her race, she leads Doug Collins by 6%. I think definitely a lean margin for Kelly Loeffler. I think she's going to be able to defend her seat and win her first 6-year term in the 2020 Senate races. And next, for the last state for the Republicans is the Georgia normal race, basically. I think it's going to go to the Republicans in the state of Georgia by a lean margin as well. And then lastly, the last state on this map, I think that the state of Maine, I think this is probably the most interesting Senate race between Sarah Gideon and incumbent Republican Susan Collins. She may be a Republican, however, she is one of the most bipartisan senators in the entire country. But recently, she has voted for both Kavanaugh and the acquittal of President Trump in the impeachment inquiry, which is why a lot of the people in the state of Maine are turning against her for 2020. She won her last election by over 30 points, and she is now polling behind Sarah Gideon by 4 points. She was elected in 1996, so definitely one of the senior-most members of the Senate at this point. But she is very much in danger of losing her seat. I think she can definitely win it back with some good choices. However, at the moment now, it's not going to go to her. Sarah Gideon is going to flip the seat in the state of Maine. So I'm just going to have to put it in the Democratic column. I think it'll be a very narrow victory. She may be leading by 4 points, but that's not going to happen election night. It's going to get a lot closer on November 3rd. And so basically, after putting in all of these states, I have the Democrats winning 52 Senate seats and the Republicans winning 48, which means I can project that the Democrats will regain control of the Senate for the first time since 2013. And so if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel, as well as liking this video. Check out my other video predictions, as well as my predictions I'll be releasing in the next few days, and I will see you in the next video.